Who else would like to raise a question to the panel? Yes, you have the microphone already, but you have to switch it on, maybe?
Yeah, it's switched on.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, congratulations for all the speakers. That was really interesting. I came from Autismo Burgos in Spain, and we have been working for a long time with autistic spectrum disorders and the employment services. And now we have a different situation about the crisis, and I want to ask how to cope with the crisis in other countries. And this is my first question. And the second appointment, it was we made research with enterprises and people with ASD and with support, employment support or coaches, and about the social skills and the necessity of telling the diagnosis. And in our research, we find that all the enterprises prefer to know the diagnosis and the experiences that nobody told the diagnosis finally didn't go well. But the question is, how about the crisis and how to cope the crisis with the enterprises? What is your opinion?
Thanks very much. Although this is not an easy question that you have asked, and of course we can deal with it as two separate questions, and perhaps they are already complex enough, because there could also be an interaction between your first question, the crisis and the effects that it has, and also again this aspect of awareness inside the enterprise. Now, maybe to keep it, not too complicated, first the aspect of the economic crisis. Is there anything interesting that one of you wants to say about it? Now, there is, of course, this more general sentiment that, in particular, the public sector and social expenses are under pressure as a result of the economic crisis. So you may expect that in a number of countries, public funding available for projects like this will also become less. But the question is this already noticeable? Do you have major problems, or is it just, let's say, a general expectation and the effect is still to come? Any comments or observations on what effects the economic crisis has in your particular project?
Did you mean for the employment of the clients or for the project finance?
For both.
Okay.
For both.
Well, I can start. In SATSA, we haven't struggled with these problems so much. We think the financial crisis hasn't influenced so much. We had 5 clients in employments for 1.5 years, and we think it's quite good result. And about the project finance, we haven't seen so much problem there either, because in Sweden they have focus on these target group, and they think it's important. So there is money.
Okay. Anybody else who would like to say something about the effects of the economic crisis? I may perhaps say something from the perspective from Brussels, because we have, of course, also been confronted with this question. And I'm not surprised that, Anna in Sweden is perhaps not too worried about it. What we can see is that the effects are, at the moment, rather different from member state to member state. In some member states, the impact is already quite significant. and in other member states it is hardly noticed. And that applies both to the situation of employment with persons with disability, disability, so the pure unemployment statistics, but it applies also to spending on projects, social expenditure, etc. So it is difficult to generalize about this, and I think when action needs to be carried out, it mostly needs to be done within individual countries. Because some countries it is a problem, and other countries are doing relatively well, as they are also doing relatively well on employment more generally. Now, the second part of your question was again related to, the knowledge inside the enterprises. And in your research that you referred to, if I understood correctly, you said that all the enterprises prefer to know, but at the same time, the persons with AS themselves are very reluctant to reveal. Now, I think we have already touched upon this in our first discussion round. Is there anybody who would like to add something on this, and perhaps also the research findings about the companies themselves and the kind of problems that you can create if the company is not informed, because that is also a possibility, but is that wise, because it is likely to produce problems at some stage?
Well, I think crises arise when the colleagues do not know how to deal with people who are affected with ASD, and it's easier for them not to know about the diagnosis, better to know how can I communicate with my colleague, with my new colleague, and are there some parts in our contacts, in our contact we should take aside. We shouldn't talk about it, and then I think it will work. And the second thing is, I think a crisis will arise, and therefore we need a partner, a person outside the enterprise who can be contacted by the enterprises.
A kind of person of confidence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Norway, you have labor market measures that sort of cover what you're wondering about. There are labor market measures where you have people employed in the labor market measure, but that are contact people and that work out in the firms with the whole integration and sort of teaching both regular employees and bosses and the people that are being integrated into the firm to help them and assist them. But again, it's a difficult area because you have to have this balance again. You know, not too much isolation, and at the same time, don't force yourself trying to be over nice and all this, because it's not gonna work.
And probably again here also there is not just one approach that will suit everybody. I mean, there is a great variety also of persons, and I suppose that it's not so simple to give just one recipe that will always work. Any other observations, comments, questions? Yes, please. Autism France. And a comment, I suppose, as well.
If I dare say that ASD persons have a competitive advantage, I would say that in some cases, we have an example, for example, in France, in Eurocopter, in special, they need special skills, you know, to design things on computers, and they have 2 Asperger working there, and it's fully satisfactory. Okay? So every time we have to sell, I would say, a person with Asperger in a company, we have to sell. That means that we have to choose the right person with the right skill which fits to the company needs. And so every time we will be hopefully successful, and when we are successful, everybody talks about that, you know, and there is a virtual circle on this, okay? So we have to be, yes, careful, we have to be careful, but we have to be also proactive to help them. Because every time they are well in a good environment, every time they are good performers, and the companies are satisfied. That's all.
Can I just add? I very much agree with you. And I think one of the most important things with this integration is if you can manage to reduce stress and increase the feeling of security, then things move along very well. And I agree with you that you, and that's part of what we're trying to do with our project. You're selling highly competent people in these fields. Software testers, quality assurance, whatever. They have certifications, they're qualified just like anybody else, and they do superb work. We're getting feedbacks from these external firms. And so it's also teaching employers, people owning these firms, that they have to pay for quality. Yeah.
Yes, I was also grateful for your comment, and it is also related to the objective of this call for proposals that I mentioned earlier. We go for pilot projects, and one of the reasons why this was started was indeed the idea that potentially many persons with AS can provide this competitive advantage to employers, but very often there is no opportunity either for the person to show it or for the employer to discover that there is such a thing as a competitive advantage. I must say, this is one of the things that I've been also looking for in the projects that were presented here today. I noted that when it comes to employer satisfaction, that in general, when there are data about employer satisfaction, these seem to be positive. At the same time, I did not yet see sufficiently strong signs that this could really be sold to many other employers that really, you know, there are these competences that are waiting to be discovered. And I think that is also something that we hope to get out of these pilot projects, that we find a way to communicate more convincingly about this. And again, I hope that roundtables like these can contribute to that as well. But I'm afraid that in our audience tonight there are not many potential employers. If there is a potential employer, would he or she like to take the floor now and say something about intentions to recruit? There is a potential employer. Microphone, please.